Without further ado, we are here on the second day and in the afternoon and in what we now call panel 1 of day 2, adding value to diamonds and gemstones, keeping consumers captivated. Welcome everybody. People will continue to trickle in. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping again. Those people who are in the Rotana will have, after the panel, their bus waiting to take them to the Rotana. They have times to change. That same bus will take them from the Rotana to the farm. Everybody else will go directly from here, from the back exit where the buses are, to the farm. Let's start, and let's introduce our panel of today, the third panel. As we said before, we have tried to build a program that is held in logical sequence, and this is the third part of it. And our moderator is Dr. Frank Muller from Dresden, Germany. We have had the pleasure of working with Frank for many, many years and have done some amazing, amazing things. And we're happy that Frank was ready to come and do this panel. And then we have with us David Kelly I'm reading it according to the order that's in the program, so my apologies, Katrina, your turn will come. David Kelly of the Natural Diamond Council. David is a former luxury specialist and has a lot of experience. I've had the pleasure of interviewing and having David on several panels, also at the president's meet of the IDMA Congress last year. It was a year ago. Yeah. And then we have Francesco Tombilini, who is an absolute and a brilliant addition to this panel. Who is you have to read this. If you haven't done that, go to his bio online and see what he has done in his career. It is, in my view, it's mind-boggling. All the amount of companies and entities that he has assisted. Katarina Perez, we have long admired her Paris-based and a jewelry insider, very, very active online, and we see her everywhere. That is really wonderful. And Katarina has quite a few things to contribute to this panel. And last but not least, of course, our moderator of yesterday and who did the Q&A in both the first panel, Richard Chetwood. Thank you, Richard, for doing a sterling job yesterday. And we're going to kick off from here. And our wonderful tech team is now going to put your first part of your PowerPoint on the screen, and you will start with your introduction. If you have any trouble, call me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming back. We have thought, Katarina, David, Francesco, and Richard, that we should frame our discussion with an initial presentation about the current status of the luxury industry to put us all on the same page. We would then proceed to the actual discussion, interrupted by, hopefully, your questions. And finally, we would sum it up again with a little presentation in which we would like to outline some 10 to 15 hints where best practice is interesting, perhaps, for the diamond industry in comparison to other product categories within high end. So please let me start. Now, the luxury industry is a successful one. If we look at the time since 1990, it has enjoyed a long cycle of well-doing, of a resilient business growth despite many crises. It has been carried basically by 4 major, what we call mega boosters. The first one, of course, new markets, internationalization, just to name important ones, China, Russia, the Middle East, of course. Secondly, the business was triggered by incremental revenue, especially on brand level, through vertical integration in incorporating wholesale, the notion of boutiques, the notion of owned e-commerce. Thirdly, it was supported obviously by the online revolution and coming along with it, the logistical revolution, home shopping, and finally, the line extensions, the multi-category expansions, and if we look at brands like Hermès or Montblanc, they are all over the place. So if we look at the number briefly, indeed it is a successful industry with an average growth annually of 6.2% since 2011, and if we have a closer look at hard luxury or personal luxury, as Bain puts it, the growth was 5.7%. So that's quite amazing, especially if we look at the amount of crises that have happened in the meantime, whether it is 9/11, Lehman, SARS, MERS, COVID, of course. So the industry has been doing well, and obviously we all hope that this evolution will continue, that we have some sort of linear, at least linear extrapolation. However, we must not be naive. Just because LVMH, Hermès, or Rolex do perform well, that does not necessarily mean that the whole industry is doing well. And if we just look at the recent example of Gucci, no, indeed, not everyone within the luxury industry is doing well. And a nice, good telling indicator are the market capitalization of stock-listed companies, luxury companies. So if we look at it, and here, please, we must not only look back to the last 12 months, but maybe longer periods, let's say 5 years. Yes, there were among the 40 or so, roughly 15 who have yielded a positive share price over the last 5 years. But if you look at the rest of the pack, not the case. So roughly half to 2/3 of stock-listed luxury companies have not yielded a positive share price over the last 5 years. And if you compare the industry, and here the indicator is the S&P Global Luxury, if you compare that index with S&P 500 or the Nikkei or whatever you take, it's underperforming, as a matter of fact. So just because we hear that Rolex is doing well and Mr. Arnault is creating an empire, that does not necessarily mean, again, that everyone is doing well. You know the figures of your own industry, and just yesterday, LVMH was announced publishing their numbers, and if you look at the jewelry and watches category, it is down by 3%. You know the numbers of the publications, the announcement of De Beers, of Signet, Richemont, Chow Tai Fook, and the others. And that applies, you know, these charts about price declines, you know the charts about lab-grown diamonds. Here I'm not telling you anything new, but if we compare your industry with other categories, and that's the exercise of this afternoon, we find other industries that are facing the same challenges. So if we take, for instance, the Swiss watch industry, which is the reference for high-end watches, it has lost 50% of volume over the last 25 years. And even if you make the differentiation between expensive mechanical watches and cheaper mechanical watches, the expensive segment has basically only grown through price increase. And that may be a first indication of what the diamond industry should do, which is upgrading, because if we feel that the volume is not there anymore, there's only one way, and that's up, in making the offering more scarce, in telling the nice emotional stories to the customer, so that she or he is ready to spend more money on the same item than they used to be in the past. So you see here is the evolution of the various price segments of the Swiss mechanical watch industry. And basically, over the last 25 years, for any watch that costs less than 5,000 US dollars retail, or even 7,000 US dollars retail, is basically flat over a long period of time. So the only segment here that was growing are the watches with a public price of above 7,000 US dollars, and here the growth was spectacular. So the industry, the Swiss watch industry, has only survived because of this notion of upgrading. Now, the topics the luxury industry is discussing are the same as you are. Watches, cars, fashion, consumer behavior change as a big one. And it is a big one. I was recently in Shanghai, and if you look how the consumers are changing there, we see the first plant of a national Chinese luxury, built on the notion of a strong, proud population that wants not only to buy Western luxury products, but homegrown ones. And that will affect especially the fashion industry in the years to come. Another topic that the industry as such, of course, is discussing is ESG and the democratization of societies, which affects the way how people purchase items or not. Demographics, that is the ticking time bomb hardly anyone is speaking about. Yes, we know in China, Southeast Asia, Africa, India, there will be new middle classes, but not everywhere. The population will grow, and we will have two effects. One is more middle classes, more income, more wealth, and on the other hand, we will have simply less people. And China is losing roughly 20 to 25 million of people every year. So if you prolong that over a period of 10 years, we're talking 200 million people less in China. The macroeconomic growth, political stability, and wealth evolution, of course, is important for the well-being of the luxury industry. Oops, here we go. Innovation and substitution, and we will discuss that in a minute. Industrial vertical integration and the value chain, and concentration of processes, and creating big groups of luxury. The missing next mega boosters. Don't forget again, luxury was built on these four principal boosters, and if we don't have a next one coming up, growth rates will be smaller as a simple mathematical equation. So the diamond industry is not alone. What has been discussed in the car industry, in the watch industry, the fashion, the beverage industry, the same thing. Just to remind us a little bit about these topics, ESG. We have consumer change, and the topics are changing to some degree. Indeed, yes, Capgemini and others telling us there will be more very wealthy people, and they will come for sure, but that evolution will be contradicted by demographics. So, and it's not about China, it's about Italy, it's about Germany, it's about Spain, it's about the US. Here the demographic factor is starting to set in as well. So if we want to develop our business, we've got to keep in mind what are the future volumes we are talking about. And speaking about new wealth, new middle classes versus demographics, the question is, who is our next target group? Now I understand that Louis Vuitton tries to start as early as possible, to grab those Gen Zs as early as possible. However, looking at the demographics, maybe we are forced to reconsider our target marketing, target grouping, to reconsider whether we should also at least consider people that are older, that live under different circumstances, that are wanting us to address certain topics, and instead of just broadly saying, yeah, we need to chase Gen Z and everything will be fine. Unlikely if we just do that. So the question is Gen Z, Gen Z, or more targeted groups, or both, and that will have implications on the way how we position brand, on the way how we allocate budgets, on the way of, in the way we define campaigns, and this is what we're going to discuss in a minute. Substitution as a topic. Indeed, you're not alone. Yes, lab-grown diamond are a big topic, such as the smartwatch is for watches, such as the electronic motor is for the German car industry. And I can assure you, in Germany, in Stuttgart, in Munich, they're panicking about their future. What's the message they want to tell in the future? Given that any Honda is as fast as a BMW at traffic lights, given e-mobility. So the future, likely there are three scenarios, broad ones. Obviously, this is not scientific, but may help us to shape our discussions. The first hope is everything will be fine. We will be able to extrapolate our past, and this crisis is just a normal one that happens every now and then. The second one is we bet on new middle classes, we bet on new markets, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, and we will have a bigger business. And the third scenario is we have a changing consumer, we have ESG, we have substitution, and therefore it will be a smaller business. So anyway, there will always be luxury because the nature of people is aspiring nice things, is about to make a difference against the peers around the consumer. However, there will only be new luxury if there is more financial leeway for consumption through economic growth, and that particularly will happen in developing countries and younger generations. Luxury will evolve further if we have societies that are rather pronounced and where people want to move up. Or, to the contrary, where democracies create very flat societies where people want to stand out through consumption. And finally, consumption it will be the way to escape a grayish world where we are overwhelmed by conflict and bad news and global warming, and once in a while we simply want to have a good time, and therefore we consume nice items or services. In any case, the luxury industry and high-end brands will need to have the courage to present luxury as an escape of a mainstream existence in addressing the consumer's dreams, and in times of ESG, in times of social equality. That is not as easy, and it takes really courage to say, yes, you don't belong to the poor, you belong to the rich and famous, and there's a way out of your misery. So, in a more complex, that is to say complicated and rapidly changing world, we need to understand and anticipate the consumer needs faster and in more detail, defend the myth of luxury and the notion of exclusivity, sell more products at higher prices to the same people, adapt in strategy and operations to a world that is no more as an easy sell as it has been for the last 25 years. And that's the moment when I would like to open the floor to our panelists.
I would like to recognize our surprise panelist, who should be on the stage with us, but His Excellency Akbar al-Bakr has chosen to remain seated in the audience. We promised a Qatari high-end jeweler, but His Excellency has, you have all experienced his legacy. When you flew into this airport here and you flew on the airline, that would not have happened without His Excellency. He made Qatar Airways and aviation what it is. He also headed Qatar Tourism. His resume is very long. I propose that you include him in a question about where Qatar luxury is going. He's very experienced in the Qatar luxury industry, and how Qatar can grow the luxury industry, and include him in your round. Okay? Thank you.
All right, so let's... Katarina, let me start with you. A simple yet difficult question at the beginning. luxury. What is luxury to you? And if you think about product categories non-diamond related, do you have any best practice, favorites, campaigns, products, companies where you would say, closer? Did you get the question? Okay. So where you would say, that is an interesting case for the diamond industry.
Well, when I was preparing for this talk, hello everyone, I actually went to see what luxury is, how is it defined, and there were different definitions, and the one I liked and the one I felt was closest to the jewelry industry is the one from Cambridge, and I'm just going to read it out to you. So luxury is great comfort, especially as provided by experience and beautiful possessions. And what is jewelry is not a beautiful possession? Surroundings, food, or something enjoyable and often expensive, but not necessary. And I'm sure we all agree that yes, even though luxury is not a necessity, but it's a great addition to our life, and this is why luxury industry strives through COVID, through difficult economical times, and it's always there because it's deeply connected with our emotions, and emotions is something that we always need, especially nowadays. If we talk about different industry, I believe luxury is something that can touch any industry, but it depends what kind of product is presented and to whom it is addressed. You can make luxury in the machinery industry, you can make luxury in clothes, in fashion. Luxury is a subject which is, it's quite broad. So, but I specialize in jewelry, so you put me on the spot with a difficult question.
Let me insist, what was your last financial crime? What have you bought that is not a diamond, not jewelry, and why? Obviously luxury. Would you remember?
Well, I specialize in writing about jewelry, and this is the subject I'm obsessed with, but I'm equally obsessed with handbags, because for me, handbag is like a sculpture in a way. It's also a luxury and artistic object that you can appreciate. So like many other women, I'm ready to splash out on a beautiful handbag, but again, for the purpose of emotions. You all know that when we have this beautiful product in our hands, let it be in fashion and jewelry, anywhere, the way it makes you feel, it's truly special. And nowadays, we really seek emotions with many of our actions. You know, living life is a necessity, but feeling is something which is also necessary for us as human beings. Luxury, in my mind, is food for our soul. We feed our body every day with food that we take 3 times a day, but beautiful, artistic jewelry, fashion, beautiful cars is the food for our soul, which we all need.
Thank you very much. David, you're an expert on branding. For you, luxury, what's the meaning, and could you share some best practice outside of the diamond and gemstone industry?
Yes, so I know when you do analysis, it's the only way to analyze it is to look at brands that are defined as luxury. But what is luxury? Luxury for me is the opposite to a commodity. They're 2 ends of a spectrum. A commodity is something that has no emotional value, but has all practical value. So a nail that you hammer in is a complete commodity. It's price sensitive, you only buy it to serve a purpose. On the other end of the spectrum is the luxury industry, where there is no purpose. If you have a pure luxury, it is purely as a emotional connection. And even bags, if my wife will justify a new bag for all sorts of pragmatic reasons, the reality is she doesn't need another one. So there's a high connection there with emotion and the endorphin rush that you get with it. But what we all have to remember is that jewelry is the ultimate luxury, because jewelry is purely an adornment. There is no, or very rarely, a practical purpose for jewelry. It's purely a emotional connection, a symbol of who you are. And so for me, we are the ultimate in luxury. And when I looked at one of your charts, and probably it's too complicated to get the chart back, and I hadn't seen the charts before we saw there, and I was looking at it and saying, look, here's all the brands that you said were doing really well and had done well, and what do they all have in common? You know, it's always good to say, well, what have they done that the others haven't? And a number of different things. One is they have focused completely on the emotion. They've completely on the emotion. They haven't discounted. They've not done promotions. They've not driven their business through trying to chase the last dollar at the last moment to make a number at the end of the day. Most of them are privately controlled. They are public companies, but most of them have a private controlled shareholder who is making sure that they look at it in the long term. And the other thing they all do is that they invest. They all have huge investments. They all completely understand that that investment is a long-term investment. They don't have CFOs that turn around to them and say, well, if I invest today, what return do I get on it next week? And they can do that because they're privately controlled. So for me, there are a whole load of learnings in the luxury industry and the successful companies there that we have to adopt. For me, this isn't a discussion about what could we be doing, how should we be doing it. For me, we've got one choice, and that's to be the ultimate luxury or not. And either we behave as an industry as the ultimate luxury, the ultimate in emotion, or we don't. And that's our destiny. And people that have heard me speak beforehand, I'm not a big believer in fate. Fate's going to happen, but I don't like sitting around a table and saying, well, let's wait and see what's going to happen to this industry. It's 100% within our control as an industry to set our destiny. And that destiny is whether we believe in what we're selling and whether we understand that it's about emotion, that it's about the values, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that later, but it's about the values that we portray. And do we all agree? Are we all on board with that? Or is someone going to turn around and do something that's detrimental to this wonderful product, this wonderful brand that is Natural Diamonds?
I feel the emotions on your side, which is good. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I say to our team, if you're not passionate about it, then this probably isn't the game for you. Because I meet so many people who, like Katarina, and journalists and retailers who are passionate about it, and they're the ones that are driving the strength. And then I see other people who treat it like it's a commodity. And that hurts. You know, I get, again, people that know me will say, I have passion and frustration in equal measures because I so passionately believe in this industry. But I get so frustrated when I see people treating it like a commodity. And if it's a commodity, then it's a race to the bottom. And we won't all be meeting together in Doha, you know, in future years, beautiful places that we get the benefit of doing. We won't be providing the benefits to countries and producer countries, populations. All of that will go away if we don't treat this as a luxury item and we commoditize what we're selling here.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Now, with Francesco, we have someone who has worked with owners of fashion labels, fashion companies. He knows the private side. He knows the public side. Actually, you have basically worked for all Italian fashion brands.
Hello.
Oh, I'm back again.
Oh.
So please,
Hi.
from your Italian fashion perspective, the notion of luxury
okay.
and best practice perhaps from Italy. What has the Italian fashion industry done well, and what can the diamond industry learn from it?
Thanks, first of all, to having me here. I'm a little bit emotional coming back in this country after many years. Yes, it's true, I represented a bunch of successful companies, starting from the garage, like Armani and Gucci. I've been a quite sort of Forrest Gump of fashion becoming luxury. I think that when we start this adventure as Italians, as I said before, passion has been a very important thing. We brought the passion of Mr. Armani and Mr. Tom Ford directly to the partners. We create what we call the not seen and the not said about our basic product. And I'm astonished when you consider a product without a telling. I think diamonds has a huge telling to say and to emotion the consumer much more than a bag, much more than a shoes. What probably you need is the effort we did ourselves with not only being capable to consolidate all the channels, because we're starting from wholesale, we arrive into franchising, then we move into direct retail, and do not under-evaluate the power of the digital, but we also consolidate the industries, because now in the same warehouse, in the same logistics, in the same factories, we're creating clothing and shoes and bags with the same code, with the same identifications. It's true, looking at the chart, it took about 40 years to create this, to explain that we have one only schedule, one only price systems, one only code systems. Fashion has been a good experience to see luxury before luxury. Because when we started, we were not thinking to be luxury. We realized that we become luxury when we see the value that the consumer achieves touching us. And this is something you should back to see it in your organization, because I remain really surprised. For instance, yesterday, a fantastic panel with the gemstones. I'm not so prepared on this. No? Emerald business, Rubin business. For us, these things are without any value. And time to time, we always think that there is no storytelling. No? For us, in the last 10 years especially, and this is I bring some vision from the house, all the salespeople are trained dramatically, like becoming VIP salesperson. All the manufacturers are dramatically trained to know the Indian market, the Indian calendar. Everybody in a fashion and luxury company now today, when is Diwali, when is Santa Lucia, when is that kind of period of the year. So there is no fragmentation in the decision. We try to have a vectorial strength to the customer. Obviously, there is an issue with the price, and this is something Robert said before. The CFO took the advantage too much on the price, because for me today, there is no price for value. And this is reflected by the numbers you show in the chart of the stock exchange between luxury clothing and hard luxury you are. And allow me to say another point that you touched very well, that we are facing now, and you shouldn't under-evaluate. Rising the price too much, open a space to this Zara, Shein, dramatically. And luxury houses doesn't want to fight this model. And this is going to be a big trouble today, because the new generation, they aim to take, are educated shopping starting from that kind of product. You have to be extremely serious about the lab diamond, because lab diamond is not only a question of price, it's a question of culture. We know this very well in Italy for other products like tanneries, like wines, like food. It's super important you create a consolidated approach to the naturality of your quality product. And this is something that, for instance, some little brand in Italy becoming big has done, like, for instance, everybody knows Brunello Cucinelli. No? Brunello Cucinelli starts from a tiny laboratory in the countryside. He's a personal friend of mine. And he believes in what he's saying. And he protects the originary effort.
We will come back to Brunello Cucinelli, which is perhaps the best current example of a luxury company addressing aggressively ESG in a way that is surprising, mixing the notion of luxury with morality. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But Richard, luxury and your best
Yeah,
practice.
thank you. And I'd just like to say to my Italian colleague, I'm English, so passion is my middle name. The example I'd like to give you in the diamond world first, just two quick examples of where you question whether it actually is a luxury, whether there is or was an emotional attachment, took place in Japan. In 1959, it was illegal to own a diamond in Japan. In the 1960s, it was the Tokyo Olympics. It was Western, it was cool, John Wayne films, and De Beers started positioning a diamond as one of the 9 gifts in the Unio wedding ceremony that the father of the bridegroom gave to the bride. And this being Western, clicked in. By 1972, 26% of first-time brides got a diamond engagement ring. By 1982, it was 56%. By 1990, it was over 80%. By 1993, because of this, diamonds were 33% of global consumption of diamonds were by Japan. Today, it's about 4% of the world. And what happened, and this is the cultural problem, was this was not a gift of love. It was a gift you had to give as part of the Shinto wedding ceremony. So it's a question, was that a luxury? No, it was not. It was a necessity. The luxury I'd like to give as an example of one I really admire, and it really comes under the category of redefining the terms of reference of the thing you're selling, is a company called Punkt, P-U-N-K-T, which is a Swiss-based electronics company in Bergamo. Now, they produce a telephone. It's about that size. It's a mobile phone. It's grey. It has a black and white interface. And what's unique about it is it acts as a telephone, it has an alarm, and it does SMS, and that is it. It sells for 300 euros, so slightly cheaper than an iPhone. Now, if I position it to you like that, a Swiss electronics company that produces something that does the bare minimum for 300 euros, you'd expect it to go bust overnight. But it's actually an incredible hit. Why? Look at people around here, how many people are on their phones at this moment. When you wake up in the morning, how many people look at their phone and scroll through it before they look at their wife? Technology is taking control of all of us, and this is about taking control back of technology. The people who buy this phone are not people who can't afford an iPhone. They're people who are multimillionaires who already have 10 iPhones. This is about them making a statement about who they are, about controlling their lifestyles. And they have it on their yachts, they have normal conversations. When they first issued it, they gave it to journalists and said, keep it for a week, and then report back on what you think about it. And the single line that came back every time was, for the first time in years, I'm having real conversations. This is about luxury. This is not about what you do or how you do it. It's why you do it. And I lead by saying, Amex doesn't sell credit cards, Starbucks doesn't sell coffee, Nike doesn't sell training shoes, we sell diamonds.
I liked your word. Please, go ahead. Statement you said. David, I recall yesterday night you mentioned the other related expression, status. It seems that in luxury we need statements, we need perhaps something more than just product utility, something intangible that is nevertheless very important to the consumer. You call it status, we may add identity. Could you dwell on these notions, please?
Yeah, I think if you get into the psyche of human behavior, we all like to virtue signal. We all like to present ourselves in a certain way. We all like to present ourselves in a better way than maybe we think we are in reality. And social media has exacerbated that. And diamonds and jewelry have always done that. It's always been about what does it say about me? And whether we're buying a car, when you buy a German car, what does that say about you? When you see those luxury brands that we saw earlier on, a very high proportion of what they're selling is either an icon or has an icon logo on it. So a big part of luxury is what does it say about me? And whether or not we choose to deny that and say, no, it's not. That is how humans behave. And sometimes we're not open enough to be able to say that because status isn't a positive word. It's about status. Well, diamonds are. Diamonds are. It's about me. It's how I express myself. And it's why in some markets like the US, that status is being able to wear a 2 or 3 carat diamond even if you can't afford it. Because on your social media, it's, look, I've got a 2 or 3 carat diamond. I've made it in life, even though it's not a natural diamond and it doesn't have that same value. It's the reason why in other markets of the world where authenticity is much more important, lab-grown diamonds haven't penetrated into those markets because it's, for me, that status, that virtue signaling is about I'm authentic. I wouldn't want to be seen with something that isn't there. So I think it's something we don't talk about often enough in this industry because it doesn't feel necessarily like a comfortable thing to be talking about. We'd rather be talking about ESG and values, and that's us virtue signaling, to be absolutely honest. It's, you ask most people why they buy a lab-grown diamond, oh, it's because, you know, ethical reasons, ESG. No, it's not. That's the justification. The reason why they bought it is that it's cheaper for a bigger diamond. When you research them, they say, yeah, but that's, you know, the other stuff is the justification because they're virtue signaling with it. So for us, we, you know, and the role of marketing, and it's why we, the NDC, we've got real marketing specialists, is to really understand what it is the consumer believes in and wants, and sometimes to cut out all of the other stuff that we all like to think we do, and we cut to the reality of how consumers really behave. Like I say, I mean, it used to be the case, and please don't quote me on this, it's way out of date. It used to be the case that Louis Vuitton in Paris, their average price point was like $700 or $800. Now, I'm sure it's much higher than that now, but it's always a frustration of mine. People are buying engagement rings, $3,000 to $10,000, and the experience is nothing compared with the experience you get when you buy true luxury. So it's, again, these are big discussions. People that know me know that I can talk for hours on the topic. Probably you don't want to listen for hours on the topic. But for me, it's being really clear as to why people buy diamonds, why they buy jewelry, and not us trying to pretend that it's for different reasons. Let's be realistic as to why they buy diamonds and jewelry. And again, it's an adornment. It's not a commodity. It is to show something. And that's what we've got to remember.
Katerina, you're speaking to 480,000 followers. What are their dreams? What are they looking for in being interested in diamonds, in discussing brands, kinds of qualities of diamonds, gemstones, yes, no. Is the industry talking to the same people as you are? What are their dreams and what could be done?
So in my experience, people are looking for jewelry for different reasons, and the reason why they use social media to expand their knowledge is, one of the reasons is to get knowledge. My background is in retail, so I come to this industry from selling to the end consumer and from facing them. And I remember when I started writing about jewelry, the reason why I've done it, because people weren't sure how to navigate the world of jewelry. It was still very much behind the scenes, very secretive. So I wanted to bring them the knowledge and the experience and show them the wealth of jewelry out there by the means of online. So you wake up, you open your phone, you can see high jewelry, which in the past you could only see in the boutiques, in the museums, at exhibitions, and I felt that there was such a big gap in the market for showcasing the beauty to everyone out there who wants to see it. So the reason why they come to me personally is to get the knowledge about jewelry, because the more we understand jewelry, the more we are comfortable buying it, asking the right questions when we go to purchase that next ring, earrings, and the more we're knowledgeable, the more we are comfortable with jewelry. Second, of course, for inspiration. You know, I get followed by equally the consumer and the industry specialists out there who sometimes want to see what's happening out there in the world of jewelry. Of course, for many, they come for inspiration for shopping. What will be my next ring? What will be my next earrings? What's trending in the jewelry industry? I'm lucky to be able to travel the world to show the best of jewelry and gems from out there. And for the many people, my account on Instagram is the way, like it's the window into the jewelry world. I focus on high-end jewelry, so I show expensive luxury designs and gemstones, because my goal also to help them to form their taste in jewelry. You know, there is so much out there, and the jewelry industry is constantly growing and developing. How do you know what's good? How do you know where to go? What jewelries exist in this country or that country? So I'm there to be like a guide in the world of jewelry for them. Their dream, of course, to find the jewelry that responds to their needs. And I wanted to speak about that. Why do people even buy jewelry? We talked about emotions. Yes, of course, it's a big part, a big why. We talked about investment value. In the past, especially, jewelry was a lot bought for investment. It's a special piece for an occasion. So this is a function of jewelry, to be given for an occasion. Of course, it's belonging to the club, what you were talking about, status symbol, belonging to the club. We go and buy Cartier Love bracelet. Is it specially beautiful in design? Not so much, but look what waves it makes among the youngsters. You know, if you wear the stack of love bangles from Cartier, you belong. And one thing which actually came to the fore in the recent, let's say, 7 years is using jewelry as self-expression. Because as with jewelry industry growing, there's so many of us people out there, and we want to stand out in the society, especially with the growth of social media. We have to stand out, we have to show our uniqueness. And nowadays, we can also do it not just with fashion or a new car or a gadget, we can do it a lot in jewelry. And thanks to this direction of where it's heading, the new, let's call it like a segment that came to the fore in the recent years, which is called fashion fine jewelry, where designers use precious metals and precious gemstones, but create jewelry with the price points which are possible to buy for, well, anyone out there, or someone who can at least save up within a few months for a beautiful ear cuff or two-finger ring to really showcase their personality or their more subdued personality. So there's so many functions of jewelry, and I also hope to inspire people to, through my social media, to not just enjoy jewelry, to understand it, to be more comfortable with it, and of course to go and treat themselves to the next jewelry purchase.
Excellent. Thank you, Katerina. Francesco, target groups and fashion. What can we learn? There are different brands, there are different approaches, different price points. Could you share the success story of the fashion industry, and you may include the French one, of course, with regard to target groups?
This is a very stimulating question. First of all, today, as Katerina says, the influence of social media brought a lot of our customers to live under the tyranny of the equal. So a lot of people is looking for identification or self-expression. So it's not easy to do target group, but we could work in target geographies, for instance. One of the largest trends, for instance, in luxury fashion today is to open stores and VIP area inside a touristic resort. Mediterranean is booming, not only Sardinia, but we can see fantastic new stores in Greece and Montenegro. I'm talking about the basin of Mediterranean, but I can say also Kerala and northern Thailand. So shopping is becoming something part of your life experience. Another big trend that we have in this sense of identification is how the digital model influenced the physical model. No? All of us, we are educated to see a digital business as the copy of a physical business. No? We used to say, I open a digital store. No, today, the digital machine is really driving the physical machine, because what is super important is to utilize very well not only social media, and believe me, there is a huge difference between TikTok shoppers, then Instagram shoppers, then Facebook shoppers, then YouTube shoppers. This is something that a lot of people, my generation for sure, but for other generation is under-evaluating that each different channel brought a different kind of transaction and a different kind of traffic in the stores. So it's super important to retune all the activity of a physical stores or of a transaction into the mentality of digital. So for instance, the payment terms are very important. I always wonder why I can buy a bag of Louis Vuitton and Gucci in 3 settlement with Klarna, but I cannot do it in Blue Nile. I don't know. Why I don't see into a physical jewel, no? If we want to help this business to become always more, as we said, emotional, but more close to the new influential generations, because today the reality is true what you said, that the boomers own the money, so we need to keep it closer. But Zaygen, they have the power of influence today. These people buy in different calendar and in different way. And this is something that we need to study since the moment we begin to run the sales business. No? When I opened a store in Qatar many, many years ago, I need to ask to the Qatari guy to explain me how to bring the merchandise here, and not me forcing him to having my rules. And this is the same we should do with the new generation. But at the same time, we cannot consider that with the excusation of a high price, they can accept everything. We need also to put, and this is the third step, a lot of invisible services. That means a secondary market, that means traceability, that means polishing, insurance. Look at the car, no? Each time you buy a car, they sell you an insurance, they sell you a secondary value. And this is strangely, I don't see in a product so luxurious like you are. And in fashion today, for instance, we began to talk, a new trend that is coming out is the tokenization of all the product. No? I buy one bag in this brand, but if I bring it back after 3 years, they give me a value and they give me the new one. So this is creating a good balance between first market, secondary market, and community. And this is something you can do it.
Francesco, you mentioned Qatar, and that may be a good moment to ask Your Excellency to share with us his vision about luxury in this beautiful country. I give you my microphone. Thank you, Francesco. Would you like to sit here?
No, it's okay. I will stand and I will speak. I heard David and Katerina and of course Francesco talking about the how to promote and how to sell jewelry. Of course, I'm not an expert in jewelry. I'm expert in aeroplanes and aviation. However, I'm also the joint venture partner of Bulgari, so I learned about jewelry through them. Doha is a very big jewelry market, and unfortunately, a lot of brands have underestimated the potential of the clientele that we have in my country. What happens is people are concentrating mostly in Dubai. Of course, Dubai has a huge tourism influx. They also have a lot of high net worth people staying there. But people, one thing forget, that Qataris have the highest income bracket in the world. And the purchasing power of Qataris is very strong. And also people don't realize that we were the first country in the Gulf to start the jewelry exhibition that you find today, starting in Doha. This was started 40 years ago. And when you really look at how much people have bought during this 5 days period, is over 200 to 250 million US dollars of purchases. But what I see is lacking in Doha is exactly as Francesco mentioned, that we do not have the ability of brands to convince the young generation to purchase from that particular brand because they don't have the kind of service that Francesco was speaking about earlier. People attach here a lot of emotional value to their jewelry, and exactly like David mentioned, that people also need to understand, the suppliers, that when you are selling them a kind of a jewelry to the Qatari population, they create a kind of emotional attachment for them. And I notice one thing here in my country, that people try to think that only high-valued goods or high-valued jewelry, or especially diamonds. And I notice that diamonds have really not taken that kind of entry into the local market as it should be. Because for two things. One is the kind of quality that they get, and they have experienced that they have been cheated, because now there are a lot of artificial stuff that is floating around as diamonds. And secondly, there is no proper diamond exchange here, that people who want to buy diamonds pay a lot of money for it, where they can go and get it tested to make sure that they are not being conned and that what they are buying is authentic. So I don't want to, I know that I'm not an expert panelist in jewelry, but one thing I can tell the audience here, that if you really focus on Qatar, especially with diamonds, as this is a diamond and gem conference, that you all have a huge potential to grow your business and grow the diamond market in my country. And I'm very glad that over here, Alex is trying to promote this business in my country. And I would like to wish all of you, all the people that are suppliers and promoters of diamond, all the best. And I hope that this short visit you have in my country will be a very productive one for you. Thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, thanks.
This one is for you. When I started my business career within the Swiss watch industry, my first boss told me, Frank, if you control product design and you control advertising, whatever is in between, as far as the value chain is concerned, you don't really have to take care of. You will have experts, you will have people of your team, you need to control a little bit, but to run a brand strategically, you control what you put into the system, and you control how it is communicated to the final consumer. And later on, as CEO of companies such as Lange or Glasset Original, I found out that he is right. Now, taking that example to the diamond industry, putting in producers, outcome, the brands. In between, we have the manufacturers, we have midstream, we have the traders. Shall we worry about these? What could these players of the industry do not to get absorbed by either a very strong producer or very strong brands? And likely the same question needs to be asked about wholesale of unbranded jewelry. As BCG at least tells us, the amount of branded jewelry will increase at this as double speed of unbranded jewelry in the years to come. So how is your industrial perspective of with regard to structure, and what could those do who likely are the weakest in the link?
The thing with diamonds, I think you have to divide them into two different segments. You look at the luxury, the branded side, that's fine. The problem you have is the rest of the market. And I'll use an analogy, if I may, which is something I learned when I worked for a short period in the De Beers Consumer Advertising Division. Can I ask everyone here to think of a number, 1, 2, 3, or 4? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, please, can you put your hands up if you thought of 3? Well, on average, 80% of people think of 3. No one knows why. Maybe it's the 3 Musketeers, the 3 whatever. But that's what people do. And by the same token, people associate space with luxury. Now, if you go into a real estate, an estate agent, you look in their window, what do you see? You see a picture of house, 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 house. Why? It's about price. If you go to luxury, Gucci, Hermes, you see one thing in the window. It's about space is associated with luxury. What do you see when you go to the diamond business? You see diamond ring, diamond ring, diamond ring, diamond ring. The problem is not how the market will evolve. The whole industry has a problem on how it presents itself in the very first place. So the supply chain should shorten, but the profitability doesn't actually sit in any part of it at the moment. It's the structure of the industry that needs to change in what it is selling.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's shift the focus a little bit again on marketing. You may have heard of Patek Philippe, and I recall some 15 years ago, Patek Philippe would produce some 20,000 watches a year, basically selling to knowledgeable collectors, to the nerds of this world. And then they came up with the idea to expand their business because it was limited. Every year, 20,000 customers, loyal ones, buying expensive watches, yet there was this limit. And the family-owned company said, we've got to change it. How can we do it? Lower prices, different watches. No, actually, they ventured into branding, into marketing. And you may have crossed the advertising campaign. You actually never own a Patek Philippe. You just hand it over to the next generation. So whereas in former times only the nerds would buy, today the people who are buying Patek Philippe have basically no idea about how a mechanical fine watch would work. They buy it because they want to be a good mother, they want to be a good father, and they want to be remembered once they are dead. So on commercial level, that meant that today Patek Philippe is selling 80,000 watches a year. And if I take the 24, just to share some numbers, a consumer would buy a steel watch with relatively cheap diamonds with a quartz movement at 15,000 Swiss francs. So imagine the margin the Stern family, the owners, earn per piece. It's insane. And the only trick they used was storytelling, emotion. Richard, share with us what is the unifying super message of diamonds so that we hook the consumer, that she or he feels as attracted by a watch of Patek Philippe.
So I think what Patek have done is incredible. Controlled the brand, done a great advertising message for it. I think I'll make a prediction that, we'll come back to you. For the next 5 to 10 years, the issue of this industry will be demand. So what typically happens is that most people in this industry are on the supply side. Most people in this industry most people in this conference, most people all around the world we go to are involved in the supply side. But diamonds ultimately are about supply and demand. Pricing is about supply and demand. And so there are times when demand is super high, and De Beers created huge demand over the years, where actually De Beers did that job, created amazing demand. So the real challenge of the industry was supply. But we are now going through a fundamental change in what we do, and demand is the challenge that we all face. And so the biggest single issue facing this whole industry, and it impacts on everybody, is how do we have an impact on the demand when we are generally, 80% of our industry isn't all brands, all different brands. And the reason why brands are growing is because they are investing in themselves, they are spending money. So the challenge is for the other 80% of this industry, how are we going to drive demand? And that's not just about marketing, promotion, advertising, etc. It's about educating the retailers. It's still an incredibly disappointing experience when you go into a store, in most stores, and buy a diamond. So it's that whole experience, it's all of that emotional connection that we have. But that's what we have to focus on. And I know that when we walk away from this conference, everyone will get back into, okay, how can I sell more diamonds? I'm going to meet with someone. I want a relationship. How do I put my elbows out and compete with my neighbor to be able to sell more diamonds? And retailers, I've got to sell more diamonds to retailers. That isn't going to be our challenge. As we saw as recently as 21 and 2022, when demand was super high, we didn't have to put our elbows out to compete because everyone was successful. In a successful market, it's difficult not to make money. In a challenging market, doesn't matter how good you are, it's very difficult to make money. And so we are struggling, transparently, we are struggling as an industry to find that solution as to how to drive demand. And we're working together with other partners in the industry as to how we can do that. But that, for the next 5 to 10 years, should be our focus. And if it's not, We will have more conferences where we're talking about the challenges of the industry and the impact that it has.
Instead of solutions.
Yeah, instead of solutions, it's there have been 3 or 4 conferences in the last, 4 months where we talk, we should do this, we must do this. People on panels saying, oh, we must do this, we should do that. That time is behind us now. The time for sitting and talking about it has got to be behind us. People have to be prepared to say, okay, now we've got a solution and we're going to back the solution. And we, as an industry, have to hold the leaders to account to do that.
Katerina, as the consumer's lawyer, what is missing? What should the industry do? Brands, miners, countries, whomsoever, what should they do to help the consumer to feel more attracted by the offerings?
It's good we were talking about demand, and my answer would be to really listen to the audience, to the consumer. When I was working in retail, one of my frustrations was that I was facing the consumer, I was listening to what they were saying to me, and when we fed this information to the marketing department or PR department, they never really listened. They're like, we have our own strategy, we have everything in place the way we see it. And I'm like, how are we trying to tie the two together? What the client actually wants and what they really tell us and what you envision. Social media, in my case, helps a lot to really understand what people are looking for nowadays, how they style their jewelry, what they need. Do they need another investment piece? Do they need another piece for self-expression? How they react to this piece of jewelry or that piece of jewelry I'm showing? It really helps to understand, like, what is the future of jewelry? Do people gravitate more towards diamonds or colored stones or jewelry led by design? So social media, in my case, gives me lots of answers, but I'm sure in the case of every company who is present on social, you have to be much more connected with your audience. Not just post a picture and wait for the response, but actually interact with your audience. Ask them questions, in direct messages, in comments, start a conversation. Social media is a great way to meet people. This is not a selling platform, this is a platform to make new connections. If I had it when I was in retail, I would be making lots of money. At that time, I remember, it was like 12 or 15 years ago, we were writing down customers' details in a book, handwritten. Now you have so many tools that will help you to understand the client behavior, know about them before they even come to shop. Invite them to your boutique. You can connect with people on a personal level on social media. And if you're a salesperson, start a conversation not necessarily related to your product, to jewelry. Social media explains you a lot about people who run it. You can come to one's personal profile and understand what's their style, what's their preferences, who is their family, and so on. You have so many tools right away available for you to entice that person, to get to know them, and to finally, sell them a piece of jewelry. You're asking what else is missing, right?
Yeah. What is your wish list? What should the industry do on brand level or producer, country level? What would you suggest?
You see, the industry is changing a lot. I mean, as I said, one of the things is listening. Another thing is really understanding who you are. Because nowadays, the number of jewelries, or any luxury products in fashion and handbags and cars, the number of companies grows exponentially. Me being in jewelry business, I see a new designer, a new company coming to the fore every month, if not more often. How do you stand out? It's important to really understand what you're here for, how you're different from everyone else, who's your target audience, who you're trying to reach, because we were talking about jewelry and trying to reach to younger audience. But how about more mature audience who love jewelry equally? Maybe different style of jewelry, but still. So it's really knowing your place here, and once you know what you're about, what you bring to the table, how you're different from everyone else, that's when you can really, make the difference.
Thank you, Katerina. As we speak about communications, Richard, there's an elephant in the room called lab-grown diamond. Should the mined diamond industry aggressively, proactively speak about lab-grown diamond? Are they doing enough, or are they just hoping that they will not, they don't believe that it will vanish, of course, but that somehow the market will regulate itself? Should there be a more aggressive, open effort to address the issue of lab-grown diamond from the industry?
In two ways, yes. First of all, if you take the subject that we talked about the other day, Gemfair, the program in Sierra Leone, I don't think you're ever going to be able to sell a diamond from Gemfair until you resolve the perception about Sierra Leone, and that is about dealing with the country and the image of the country rather than the diamond first. Then the diamond will sell itself. But the second thing, to give you an example, a company that Leonardo DiCaprio is heavily invested in, which is called Vry the Jeweler, which is owned by Diamond Foundry. If you go onto their website, and their jewelry is worn by Taylor Swift, Jennifer Lopez, Emma Watson, you'll see that they talk about the diamond industry in the following terms. They refer to De Beers as the founders of apartheid. They refer to Cecil Rhodes, who died in 1902. They talk about deforestation. They talk about the impact on wildlife. They talk about the horrendous environmental and human suffering caused by diamond mining. Unless someone stands up and actually takes that on, maybe legally, then we're never going to win this battle. We've let them own the narrative, and it should be a narrative that we could walk away with. And the other half of that is, if we don't tell our own story, if we just sell diamonds as they are, we've lost the battle. So it's a kind of threefold plan.
Thank you. Francesco, in this context, there is something called Camera Nazionale della Moda Italiana.
Sì, this is a good example. In Italy, as I told you before, we're really suffering a lot the revenge business of the French. There is a strong competition between Italian and France. And we organized the Camera Nazionale della Moda, that is the national association of luxury brand, organizing firstly all the fashion weeks, so calendars, but also creating all a service of marketing and digital marketing for all the brands, preparing the management, preparing the schools, preparing the academy, and time to time also to organizing international trade shows, connecting all the brands together. So we try to don't remain separate. We try to do not have any dominant position as well. In Italy we have 2 or 3 families with dominant position, but we share by proportion all the costs of that kind of, allow me to say, district marketing in order to support all the labels and in order to generate much more interest and spikes for also little brands, trying to not leave the little alone, because we think that if we let the little brands alone, a very strong brand that created the dominance could kill the market.
I can only share with you, there are so many examples where an industry pulled its act together, whether it is Alta Gamma, whether it is Comité Colbert, whether it is the German Meisterkreis, Fédération Horlogère, the Swiss body of watchmaking. We have the Platinum Guild and many more. And one of the top examples, of course, is French wine, where an industry was able to position itself as the upper class of alcoholic beverages with a system of classification and promoting it. So there's a lot of inspiration that we can draw, take advantage of if we just look around. As we are about to close this session, I would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions if you have, and please be so kind to raise your hand. So there's Frank over there.
Hello, David Brock from Jewelry Outlook magazine. I remember 20 years ago when I entered the jewelry industry, platinum prices were roughly twice the price of gold. And as we speak now, platinum prices are barely just over a third of the price of gold. One of the key takeaways from Vicenza Oro, which I recently attended, was that some platinum jewelry manufacturers are now moving some jewelry manufacturers are now increasingly moving into platinum because of its cost advantage. So I'd just like to explore with the panel, maybe starting with David, how he sees the possible future marketing association of platinum with natural diamonds. I mean, given that platinum is often seen as a very high quality jewellery metal qualitatively, would he welcome an association between the use of platinum and natural diamonds? Or because of the price drop, does he take the opposite view, that platinum is not an appropriate partner with natural diamonds?
No, I mean, I don't think we specifically look at the jewellery metals in that way. Predominantly because the diamond is both emotionally and financially the biggest part of the piece of jewellery. So consumers, when they buy jewellery, they know that the diamond is 80 to 90% of the value of that ring or necklace or earrings, etc. So I think it's more about, do they want to associate with natural diamonds to elevate their position, than it is about, do we worry too much about whether is it platinum or gold in what we do with it. I think we own our own narrative without worrying too much about what in the marketing terms we call adjacencies.
Can I add something? You know, we're talking about creating associations for platinum, diamonds, color gemstones, and so on. The reason why I started writing about jewelry and spreading awareness about it is I wanted to elevate the industry as a whole. And the next time when a person thinks about a purchase, they don't think about buying another bag, a car, they would want to buy jewelry. And I feel that in the industry we're lacking to have that organization which will put jewelry as an industry on the map, and suddenly people will not prefer fashion, beauty, or technology. They would equally think of jewelry as an important industry to consider. They'll be more knowledgeable about it, and they'll have the resources to learn about jewelry. One of the biggest questions that I get asked, or feedback I get from retailers, is that many clients don't even understand how to style jewelry, and therefore they're not comfortable buying because they don't understand how am I going to wear these earrings, or is this gemstone for me, will it go with my skin tone, and so on. So I personally, being in this industry for 15 years now, believe there is a very strong need for an organization who will take care of elevating the jewelry industry as a whole and not just the specific elements of it. I don't know if you agree, but speaking from the heart, okay?
Emotions. Next question, please.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, I'm Priyal from Shivam Jewels, one of the diamond manufacturer. And as my question is to Frank and to Richard or Francesco also. You said that there were bodies which have combined, like the French wine industry or the horology industry in Switzerland, how they got together to increase the value. So what is that tipping point that gets all of them together? Because even in diamonds we see there are very interesting bodies who are doing it right, but still there is no one such unity where everybody agrees and contributes to one direction. So do we eventually end up there, because we know we're in the likes of one company doing it so well and the industry is built? But when do we realize that value and come back to that?
Before these two experts answer, let me give you a philosophical one. This will only happen for two reasons. One is either wisdom, or the other one is pain. And if we look at the history of the Swiss watch industry, it was certainly created through pain, because the industry was going through a very, very painful process of restructuring once the quartz movement hit the mechanical universe of the industry. Now, my hope is that the pain of your industry is not increasing to the extent that it becomes too difficult or too costly. But again, here are two experts, and I would like to invite you to answer.
In Italy, and I bring my personal experience, I'm a little bit crying when I say this year is 40 years of my experience in the industry as, again, Forrest Gump of the fashion. And I start from a village where there used to be a shoemaker, very important shoemaker, the richest guy of the town. And obviously, after 20 years, he was obliged to sold his company to another company that restructured and sold to Gucci. But even the owner of Gucci never saw this factory. He just purchased the commodity of a fabrication. The tipping point is put together all the margins in a spreadsheet and to see where to vehiculate the margin. You can leave to the customers, to the retailer, you can leave to your marketing, because if you don't create a mentality of consolidation, allow me to say, of the platform, because demand is an answer to a platform that gives a supply. If this supply is not connected, is disconnected, is fragmented, it's not only the problem Caterina explained very well. People doesn't understand what they're buying. No, look at, for instance, Apple. Apple explain everybody Foxconn, because the people is capable now want to understand what they buy. So the tipping point is to create a demand, and to create a demand you need to show a district. That can be regional, that can be continental, that can be qualified by a color of a stone. But if you remain a tiny independent products, the price will always win. And if the price wins, the value will never grow.
I mean, it's a fascinating comparison with the platinum market, because 2005, the Platinum Guild had been around for 20-odd years, 30 years. And 2005, they had a situation where the platinum price was about $980 an ounce. The industry was in crisis. China was the biggest consumer of the jewelry side. Platinum is basically auto catalysts, electronics, investments, and jewelry. And so the miners got together and they decided they had to do something. And they refinanced the Platinum Guild on a huge basis. Within 3 years, the price of platinum, primarily driven by existing demand in China and growth in India, had gone up to $2,200 an ounce. Then we had the global financial crisis. 3 years later, it was back up at $2,000 an ounce. It was a classic example of when the industry gets together and spends money on marketing the category, you can make a big difference. But the moment it got back up there, sure as eggs are eggs, what happened was the miners started looking around and saying, wow, we're brilliant. Now, if I cut back on the marketing, I can save some money. And the next miner will go, well, if you're saving money, I'll save money. Guess what the price is today? $980.
So if I could give one very quick answer. For me, when does that happen? It's when competitors realize there are some things that you can't do alone, that is better for everybody when you all come together on a topic. And there are certain topics like health and safety where companies get together and compare notes because it's for the common good. So again, it's within our destiny. If we're at that point by which we say, we all acknowledge that demand is our critical issue for the next 5 to 10 years, and that we can all put down our competitive instincts and say, can we all work together, then that moment can be now. You know, it can be done very quickly. But the question is, are we all ready for that or not?
In this context, what I find interesting in observing your industry, you're talking about upstream, midstream, downstream. You're talking about pipeline. So the way of how you think about your industry is quite linear. It's a supply chain. It's a value chain. Maybe for all of you stakeholders, would be very, very helpful to change the perspective to a concentric consumer perspective, where you start with the needs, the beliefs, the fear, hope of the very center of the success of your business, which is the consumer. And I recall, Alex, our discussions we had with regard to your fantastic project, and that was one that asked, okay, what type of certificate can we offer to the consumer that she or he builds up trust in the value chain? Obviously, your big topic may be who is financing this. I recall opening up retail stores for Lange, one 5th Avenue and the other one Madison Avenue. So I spoke with the first one, and everything was fine until the moment when I said there will be a second dealer in New York, and that will be on Fifth Avenue. And the first remark was, I wouldn't do that, he's only discounting. However, at the end, co-op share of that retailer, co-op share of that retailer, plus the co-op share of the brand, and at the end everyone was winning. So maybe you can think about systems where you educate the consumer about what wonderful things you are doing, let the retailers participate, let the miners participate, the whole value chain, through some keys that you will find. If the English Premier League is able to distribute all these billions of British pounds through some keys that the third league also gets a contribution, well, then you all will win. And as we have found out yesterday night, English football is the best at the moment because the money is sort of distributed over the whole value chain. So my invitation to you is change the perspective, think less about the chains and the pipelines and the streams, but think about your customer, the dreams, hopes, fears, and if you start from there, the rest will be much easier, also with regard to lab-grown diamonds, for sure. Alex, you had a question.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. No, I'm sitting here. I don't need. First of all, thank you, everyone. I'm afraid I was late, and I wanted to hear the whole thing. The good thing, it will be online, and we will be able to rethink whatever was discussed here. My special thank goes to Your Excellency Akbar al-Bakr for having time out of his, I saw him today in the Prime Minister's office. He was very busy, but still came here. And I really appreciate this gesture, which shows that basically the government of Qatar sees what we are doing here as an important step in some positive direction. I hope this is the case. Anyway, what I wanted to discuss, not to discuss, we don't have time to discuss, what I wanted just to say, that to share my little experience regarding what, Richard, you said about Vre. 5 years ago, I went to the store in Los Angeles, which actually nobody knew where it was. I found it at Google, and it was somewhere in between the meat market and the wholesale vegetable market. So I came to their store, and they had rings and earrings and stuff. So, and I saw that they don't look good. They don't look like diamonds. And I said, may I look this one? May I look this? And the lady said, no, I'm so sorry. These are mock-ups. We don't have diamonds. I said, wait a second. If I want to buy, they said, no, you order and we send it to you. So this was my first surprise. Second surprise was that they didn't have any design whatsoever. I mean, what they did, they went to every single person in Hollywood and gave them free piece of jewelry, usually very basic, not interesting jewelry, and used their name in their. Some of the stars, they later on asked them not to use their name because the jewelry was so ugly that nobody wanted to see it. So that brand was dead before it was born. There were some other brands which were more successful or less successful, but what I wanted to say that the demise of the lab-grown, it's self-made, caused by the no ability of design, no proper attitude to the stone as a piece of jewelry. They just copied the stuff. It works. The approach of buying a carat for $200 works. It's a carat. It's $200 to put in the ear. It's nice. And there will always be the market of this. But if we go this way, we're dead before we start because they will eat us alive. And there is no way to sell any natural diamond if somebody sells exactly the same for $200 in carat. And today you can find for $150, by the way. So what the industry has to do, no advertising, no ad, no commercial will work, because when you look at the screen and you see beautiful commercial, it's all about love, it's all about commitment, it's all about stuff. If you don't see that it's written about natural diamonds, the same commercial can use lab grown. It doesn't matter, because it has the same spark, and people don't know it. So the person who never heard about natural diamonds sees the commercial, so wow, it's a beautiful thing, $200, I go and buy two. So something has to be done in an approach how to show that natural diamonds are different, because they have to be different not in the way they look, they have to be different in the way they are. And this is the challenge that I think that this is the next step of any discussion for the future, how to be different on the screen before people read what's written there.
So Alex, could I just show you a video, just to answer that question?
Absolutely.
Could I just ask the production team at the back, just to show the video? Sorry. It's a 1-minute video,
I'm glad
which I hope
triggered
answers your question.
I'm really glad that I triggered it. Thank you,
No,
David.
no, thank you. It's more attractive to look at than I am, so it gives us an excuse to see it.
Here, in the wonder of Canada's Northwest Territories, nature unveils its most exquisite and rare treasure to those who seek it out. This beauty demands our responsibility to protect wildlife, to preserve the land, and to empower the cultures that have stewarded this magic for millennia. 3 billion years ago, elements of stars combined to form natural diamonds so pure and so real that to hold one is to touch the essence of time. Natural diamonds are real, rare, responsible.
So I agree completely with your point, Alex. There's no point in advertising diamonds if what you're saying can be a lab-grown diamond or a natural diamond. So that is our focus, 100% unique to natural diamonds.
Yakov, I have a question. Yakov?
Yes.
Jacob, I have a question. Hi, this is Gunjan Jain. You know, it's a very changing time of the tech right now, where we saw DeepSeek last week, what damage it has done to OpenAI and NVIDIA in US. Instagram, and this question is specifically to Katrina, my dear friend. I want to know, last few years, Instagram has taken the world by the storm. You have made it in jewelry industry, but we see the next generation using the TikTok, using other platforms. How do you see next coming 5 years? Where do you see Instagram?
When we're talking about luxury product, Instagram as a social media is still the only platform which is responding to the needs of luxury, which is not overloaded with advertisement, not so easy to get access of information, relatively easy to navigate compared to Facebook, where you have ads everywhere. It's just, I went off Facebook for that reason. TikTok is for a completely different audience. It doesn't speak refinement. The type of content you see there is more for younger and school children still. Of course, there's different kind of content, but still. So for the next 5 years, Instagram is safe. It's still going to be the place for luxury industry, and especially for jewelry. Right now, there hasn't been any talks about new social media coming up or any other channels, so we still continue to capitalize on Instagram and put our efforts there.
Thanks.
If I may interrupt, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank a panel. This discussion could continue for the next 3, 4, 5 hours easily, and it's the most interesting discussion. That's why we put it at the end, and only the people who really care stayed, and I thank you very much. Thank you, Frank, David, Katrina, Richard, Francesco. Grazie tante. We finish now. We have very limited time to change because our next session is in the desert. And it has to be, people don't need to wear high heels. It's quite cold in the desert, so please take your warm clothes, and the buses will be ready to go there within 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you very much.